This road is ours now. That's what she said, standing right there on the fresh asphalt I'd paid for with my own hands. Behind her, a black steel gate sealed off the only road to my farm. I had every permit, every inspection, every signature from the county. This wasn't a mistake. It was theft. I never thought I'd end up in a fight with a homeowners association, especially one I didn't even belong to. I'm Garrett Sullivan, 40 years old. Landscape architect turned farmer. 3 years ago, I walked away from my career designing golf courses and corporate gardens to build something real. 12 acres of overgrown pasture halfway between nothing and nowhere. I spent months clearing brush planting, fixing up an old greenhouse. The one thing I didn't have was access no legal road to the highway. The old owner used a dirt track through county land. I did things right. I went to the county, filed for an access permit, waded through 4 months of paperwork and red tape. $8,500 later, they handed me a stamped permit, legal binding, and approved. 2 weeks of hard labor and a few £1,000s of gravel. Later, I had a road. My road. Straight from the highway to my gate. The evening I finished paving it, I walked the length of it at sunset. The smell of tar and diesel still hung in the air. I remember thinking, this is freedom. No bosses, no committees, no rules, but my own. 3 days later, Freedom knocked on my gate wearing a gray suit and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mr. Sullivan, I'm Celeste Hargrove, president of the Pinewood Estates HOA. Her voice was polite, like someone who'd already decided how the conversation would end. She laid out an old faded map on the hood of her SUV, tapped a thin manicured finger on a strip of land that cut straight through my road. This area, according to our records, belongs to Pinewood Estates. You've built across private property. I told her she was wrong. That was county land. I had the documents to prove it. She didn't even flinch. I understand your confusion, she said smoothly. But our attorney will be in touch. You have 14 days to respond. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the letter she left behind, pages of legal language that all meant one thing. Stop using the road, or we'll bury you in court. I called my old college friend Boyd Mercer, a civil attorney. He told me, you're in the right, Garrett. The permits are solid, but they can still drag you through hell proving it. He wasn't wrong. 10 days later, I woke up to find a black steel gate stretching across my road. Heavy chain, fresh concrete footings, a shiny private property. Pinewood Estates HOA sign bolted in the middle. They'd done it overnight while I slept. I called the sheriff. He came, took photos, said it looked like a civil dispute. Celeste arrived half an hour later in her black SUV, lawyer in tow. You were warned, she said calmly, like she was teaching a child a lesson. I showed my permit. The lawyer barely looked at it. The county made an error. Until a court says otherwise, the gate stays. The deputy shrugged. You'll have to take it up with a judge, Mr. Sullivan. Then they left. All of them. I stood there alone, staring at a gate across a road I built and paid for. For the first time, I understood how people lose faith in the system. The next week was a blur of anger and exhaustion. I used a 5-kilometer detour through mud just to reach the highway. Every bump on that road reminded me I was losing not because I was wrong, but because I couldn't afford to be right. Then Boyd called with news. I did some digging. Pinewood Estates just sold a parcel to Magnolia Development owned by Celeste's brother-in-law. If your road stays open, the zoning limits their sale value. If it closes, the land triples in price. So it wasn't about rules, it was about money. I tried to stay calm, tried to believe that justice still meant something. But then Celeste went on the local news, sitting in a spotless living room talking about protecting her community from an aggressive neighbor. They aired drone shots of her perfect neighborhood, then a muddy, unflattering shot of my farm. Within a day, my business phone went silent. People I'd sold vegetables to for years stopped calling. I started to wonder if maybe she was right, if I'd made some mistake in the paperwork, if I'd built on the wrong line. Doubt crept in like rot. One night, I sat there in the dark staring at my father's old photo. He'd lost his land the same way paperwork lawyers exhaustion. He'd given up. I whispered out loud, I'm not going to be you. The next day, I fought back. I posted the truth online, the permit, the seal, the county letter, and a photo of the gate. I followed every rule I wrote, and now I'm being punished for it. It went viral. Half the comments called me a hero, half called me a liar. Then a message came from an unknown number. I have information about the corridor. Meet me at Rosie's Diner. Come alone. I told Boyd. He insisted on coming anyway. He parked outside while I went in. An older man sat in the corner coffee cup, shaking in his hands. Name's Vernon Hatch, he said. Worked at the county land office 32 years. I approved that land sale in 2001. He slid a folder across the table. The official survey from 2000 corridor marked as public, non-transferable. The map Pinewood submitted. They redrew the boundary 50 meters east. I told my supervisor it was wrong. He told me to sign it anyway. I stared at the papers. Clean lines on one map, crooked hand-drawn ones on the other. Vernon's eyes were heavy. I was 6 months from retirement. I didn't fight hard enough. But I'll testify now. They've been using that fake map for 23 years. That folder was dynamite. Boyd filed an amended complaint the next morning: fraud, conspiracy, unjust enrichment. We weren't just defending a road anymore. We were going to expose them. The hearing came 3 weeks later. The courtroom was packed. Pinewood residents on one side, farmers and small business owners on the other. Celeste sat across from me, immaculate as ever, pretending I didn't exist. Boyd opened. This case is about whether truth still matters. My client built a road on public land with a valid county permit. The HOA claims ownership based on a fraudulent map drawn by their predecessors, a map they've continued to exploit for profit. Then Vernon took the stand. He told the court exactly what happened in 2001, the pressure, the forged boundary, the approval he regretted. When Prescott, the HOA lawyer, tried to rattle him, Vernon just said, "I remember because it's the one thing I wish I hadn't done." You could hear a pin drop. Then it was my turn. Boyd asked me to describe everything: the process, the gate, the losses. I told the truth. I did everything by the book, and they still stole my access. Prescott tried to paint me as reckless, irresponsible. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "If following every law and paying every fee makes me reckless, then what does that make your client?" Boyd introduced the final piece: HOA meeting minutes showing Celeste discussing the access issue 2 weeks before selling land to Magnolia Development. The timeline was irrefutable. Motive, intent, and gain all connected. Prescott's closing argument was short, polished, desperate. "Your Honor, we're talking about a 23-year-old deed. My client acted in good faith." Boyd's was quieter. Good faith doesn't redraw boundaries with a pen. Justice shouldn't depend on who can afford the better story. The judge took 6 days. On the morning the ruling came, I was in the greenhouse when my phone buzzed. Boyd's voice was tight with relief. We won. Judge Vance declared the corridor public land. The HOA's deed fraudulent. My permit valid. They were ordered to remove the gate within 7 days and pay me $120,000 in damages and fees. She also referred the case for criminal investigation. I drove to the gate that afternoon. Workers were already unbolting the steel posts, loading the pieces onto a flatbed truck. The private property sign clanged as it hit the metal bed. The asphalt under it was scuffed, worn by months of rain, but it was still mine. I ran my hand over the surface, rough, real, permanent. I didn't cheer. I didn't speak. I just stood there watching them haul away the proof of her power piece by piece. For the first time in months, I felt the quiet kind of victory, the one that doesn't need applause. When the truck rolled off, the road was clear again, stretching straight from my farm to the highway. A week later, the county put up a green sign at the entrance, Sullivan Road. I stared at it for a long time, sun setting behind it. After everything they took, after every lie they built, the truth was still standing. Sometimes doing things the right way feels like weakness until it's the only thing that wins.